Hello, guys. Can you guys hear me? I can hear me. All right, we're going to get started as we pile in here. Welcome. I was trying to think, how do I start this to get you all pumped up? We can scream at AI. No? That'd be weird, right? So, welcome to another great InsurTech New York event, talking about AI and automation. My name is Roy Hansraj. I'm part of the InsurTech New York, and I run some of the programs with these guys. I also have my own consulting company, RCI, which helps innovation with insurance companies, trying to let them scale and get to the next level. So everybody needs a little ROI in their life, so let's talk afterwards about that later. And AI and automation, that's my jam. So we can talk later about that, but we're here to talk about InsurTech New York, and if I can figure out how this works again. I went the wrong way. Down is up. Oh, I got to turn it on. I got it. Basic things. So first, I want to thank our sponsors for helping us out here, run this great show. We have Impera, Avanta Ventures, Best Fit, Instabase, Usher, and OutSystems T4S. We have a lot of events throughout the year. We usually started off with our big conference in March. We have two events in San Francisco, the Investment and Resilience and Claims. This is the You Are Here sign. We're right here in the automation and AI place that we have open to the public. We have two more this year. We have the distribution and underwriting coming up in August and November. And for our members, we have we completed our small commercial and this Agent Tech this morning. The next one's coming up at CVC Forum. But we do other things as well. We also have early stage competition that started off in the beginning of the year. And then we have our growth stage accelerator, which we're starting in a few weeks. Now, the accelerator, we do a lot of great things. It really helps out a lot of the startups to get matched with a lot of the insurance carriers. And this is a big part of the program where we're actually making those connections real. We make sure those meetings happen. We also make sure that there's real investors, truly elevate the game. This is quite important for the whole community as we put forth this every year, and the next one's coming up now. And that's in short term. But the big thing we have also in long term is next year, we already have a venue and a set at Pier 60 here next year, March 29th and 30th, marking your calendar. It's going to be here in New York for competing on collaboration. So these are our bigger events. This past year, we had about a little more than 500, almost 600 people at the Marriott Marquis, and now we're doing a Pier 60. It's one of our bigger events that we bring the whole community together. With that said, I'd rather jump right into it. We started a little late because we wanted to give you guys time to network and talk to each other, get some grub while you're at it too. But what we have going on right now, we're going to go through two panels and three TED-style talks that we have. We're going to give you a little time between there to do a little break and also networking at the end. With that said, let me introduce this panel right now. As I start introducing you, if you guys can come to the stage. We have Bastian. He is the insurance leader at Instabase, the automation platform for unstructured data. We have Michael, who's the CEO at CGS Health. He has launched new technology-driven business services, including IP communication, digital media, SaaS, and InsurTechs. We have Elizabeth. She's a data scientist at Counterpart, where she helps create the framework for using machine learning models to facilitate data-driven underwriting decisions. And my friend Meredith, she's also the head of global insurance at Usher. She has more than 30 years of experience in the insurance industry and was an executive at Liberty Mutual. And finally, Michelle, another friend of mine. She is a founder of Finsure Consulting. Michelle has helped some of more notable names in the insurance ecosystem to launch and scale. I want to pass it over to Michelle.
Great.
We only have 4 mics. I'm so sorry. I have to share.
We can share. Great. Okay. Great. So thanks everybody for coming. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So Meredith and Bastian. So tell us about you have the widest lens out of everybody here. How would you think about AI applications for your clients? What are the most common and practical use cases?
I think one of the most practical use cases we're seeing, it's so much of it's the unsexy stuff, the unglittery. And what we focus on at Usher is we focus on the experience between the carrier and their customer or their agent, their broker, providers, et cetera. So we're on that customer experience layer, customer experience automation. And inbound email triaging and contextual acknowledgement. Just that alone, I mean, we've had customers just that all that mail, the thousands of pieces that come in every day to that shared mailbox that needs to get to the right place ASAP, kind of opportunity number one. We had one customer who took it from 2 days and 2 different people touching it till it got to the right destination to then actually be handled and got that down to no human touch in a minute. I mean, it's that kind of unsexy, but that powerful. But the other piece is the acknowledgement. And that's where you start getting to that consumer expectation that any of us have of any product or service provider, which is, got it, paraphrasing what was submitted. So like not generic acknowledgement, but thoughtful acknowledgement, and the opportunity to use technology to provide the what happens next and when, and is there anything else we need from you? That's what we love about Uber, DoorDash, Amazon, because we're never left guessing where we are in the journey. And I always tell companies, I said, if you don't tell them that quote submission is going to take 2 days until the quote proposal is going to come in, they might be thinking it's this afternoon. And so when 2 days comes and you think you hit your SLA, well, you might have, but that broker or that commercial lines customer may have moved on because they were expecting something this afternoon, versus if you say it's coming in 2 days, well, now you've set their expectations and they can decide what to do with that.
Yeah, thanks, Meredith. I mean, I think that maybe first of all, we need to define what is AI really? I mean, it's like an umbrella term that encompasses so many different technologies, including NLP, deep learning, and a couple of others. I completely agree on the AI does mundane stuff, rote tasks. It's the type of thing that humans ordinarily would do, but you wouldn't want to do that because they are rote tasks and you want to focus on the core important things. Like an insurance company, that would be the core task of underwriting or the core task of adjusting a claim. Emails is definitely one of the very common use cases that that is being used there, like including understanding intent, routing that emails to the right places. Now, subsequently, there's a lot of insurers here in the room today. Now, a lot of documents, they still come in, like including Excel documents with complex tables in there, broker presentations that are long, like PDF documents that are a lot of free text in there. Life insurers, they will recognize attending physician statements as the horror that is faces an underwriter on a daily basis. Excuse me. And extracting that type of data reliably out of those documents and understanding what is the valuable and what is the relevant pieces that are inside of those documents, that actually requires some pretty advanced understanding of models. And in Space, we use deep learning for that, to extract the relevant data out of these complex documents and push them out to an underwriting workbench or a claims adjustment system, for instance, so that a claims adjuster or an underwriter can actually reliably use that data without having to go through piles and piles of data. I think some of the other things that are really, really relevant is that once you have actually extracted that data, you can do lots of fancy stuff with that, right? So triage modeling, fraud modeling, all of that relies on structured, reliable data before you can actually do any of that type of fancy stuff. And that's, where InsurTech finds its bread and butter.
Great. Thank you so much for that. So, Michael, health insurance really has 2 distinct worlds. We've got the pre-claims and the post-claims. So when we have the health insurance third-party administrators, we have the self-insured plans, the plan administrators. Where should we focus AI on? Should we focus on preventative and really the AI for population data, or should we focus on triage and claims management?
Thank you. So I'm Mike Pastor. Thank you very much, InsurTech New York, for having us here today. How's that? No? Yes? There we go. All right. Well, thanks for having us here. Give a little context. We have 3 different companies in the employee benefits space, specifically around self-insured group health plans. So we have a third-party administration business. We have an underwriting business where we are an underwriter for Liberty Mutual and Ironshore in the medical stop-loss space. And we also have a data analytics company. And they're synergistic, they all overlap. The data analytics company has actually been in stealth mode, but will be launching this July with over 50,000 users on that platform. So this question you ask is very relevant to what we're doing. So is it pre-claims or post, right? And we probably could answer yes to both, but I will try and answer the question. We compare it a bit to think of recycling, right? If you're an individual and you take it upon yourself to recycle, that in some ways can help larger problems that may ultimately come out of not recycling. So let's think of like the Pacific Ocean and the big vortex of plastic in that ocean, right? So we look at it the same way in that if we can use artificial intelligence or machine learning or deep learning on the front end prior to a claim happening at the member level, which is a lot of what we do as a member-centric, then we would say that's a good place to start, because if you can avoid getting to these large claims after the fact, you solve a lot of problems to begin with. We do both sides of it, but our response would be start with population management or individual member management prior to the claim occurring.
So Elizabeth, many cyber and specialty insurers are struggling to make a profit right now. So how are we using AI or expert systems to answer the unprofitability carriers, or is this just a hopeless cause and we just need to focus on strategy?
Yeah, so when I think about profitability and using machine learning models are really, really good at solving very constrained, well-defined problems, business problems that have been framed as technical problems. Like if you build a model, it's not going to just suddenly become conscious and start underwriting for you. Like you need to have a clear strategy of what you want to get out of it. And so the thing about that is, like if you're thinking about profitability, some clear objectives that you could have are, I want to make smarter decisions, or I want to make more decisions faster and scale. And so those are totally reasonable options, but you need to know what you want. And the other thing about using machine learning is that it's actually kind of a pretty expensive investment. You need a team to build your models, you need a lot of data, and you probably need to like build a bunch of models that don't work that well the first couple of times. So you need a lot of time. You also need your company to have a really good like business and technical architecture that allows you to deploy models. At some of my past companies, I've seen models just kind of sit on the shelf because there wasn't a really good way to deploy them. It took a lot longer to deploy them than it actually took to build them. And so if you're thinking about profitability, it's not just something that's going to work without any effort. You're going to have to put a lot of thought as well as a lot of resources into solving that problem.
Very cool. Sebastian, where do integrations break down and why do you think this is the case?
Yeah, I actually like to pick up on some of the things you just mentioned. So I think this is really where some of the latest companies, including the likes of InsurTech, come in order to make the deployment of these types of models so much easier. Where InsurTech actually comes in, so where the integration point is relevant, is that technology should not be the limiting factor here. I mean, to develop a model these days, leveraging deep learning and the types of tools available on a platform like InsurTech typically takes just a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks. That's the real shift change that has happened with the advancement of deep learning. Where integration, we have integrated with the most complicated IT environments in the world. So with some of the largest enterprises. Where integration actually comes difficult is not necessarily technology related, but it's really more people related. So have you properly defined the value add in your use case? Is it really actually going to create ROI for you? Have you previously identified all of the different stakeholders in your organization that have to be, brought on board? Have you gone through like security checks and things like that? If you have aligned all of those properly, you should be able to integrate pretty much anywhere.
Great.
Yeah, and I'd love to dovetail on that. I so relate to what you said. We work with customers and we talk about, test and learn, experiment. It's not a bad thing. I mean, we're in an industry, it's about preventing bad things from happening. I get it. But no one's going to, your customer's not going to blow up if you invite them to a conversation and you do an A/B test of half of your customers on email and half of your customers through text and see where they lean in. But that being said, we really propose kind of move away from that core system mindset where you plug together everything before you turn on anything. And instead of I was on a whiteboard with a marker, which I always want to be within about 5 minutes in a room, if I was drawing out the layers of the core systems, like the multiple claim systems for this one line of business based upon different brands and all those types of things. You take that one customer experience and you're first trying to kind of test and learn that one interaction with the customer, with the member, with the patient. Are you connecting with them? Then keep going into that integration, keep tunneling in, because every step along that way, you're learning something about what is it going to take. And to your point, is it worth it? How deep do you go with that integration? Is it worth integrating at all? Or, in the land of mainframes still live on, right? Because they still live. Maybe it's easier to have your IT job, just run a nightly job every night, export a flat file. And, we have some of our customers running their automations off of that. So that opportunity to figure out how deep do you go and how hard was that? And did it fit with your assumptions and expectations, or did you meet a surprise, good or bad, on the back end? That's gold. So you don't have this 6-month, 12-month, 18-month, 3-year plan, and you go to the first step. Who's been part of one of those? You take the first step in and go, assumptions completely flawed. That project is now ×2, ×3, ×4. If you have the opportunity to take that much more vertical, go end to end all the way through to your integration and back, and take all those learnings and then take your next step and take your next step.
Thanks. So maybe you can share your mic because, we've got, for these two, we got Michael and Elizabeth coming up. So I was just seeing if, Meredith, if you would just share your mic with, if you just pass it, just so they could have it. Thanks. So, so Michael and Elizabeth, do you think traditional machine learning and natural language processing startups have done a good job of setting expectations for how to integrate their out-of-the-box platforms? And have they done a lot of the work for you to customize?
So I think that out-of-the-box, open source, machine learning, NLP tools like that can be great. They really democratize who can build models, which is awesome. But the problem is that it's really easy to misuse them. So what actually is important if you're going to use them is to have a really strong culture around modeling best practices and make sure that everyone who's deploying models is really comfortable with experimental design. And I think that to achieve that, you need a lot of communication and transparency and a lot of just sort of clear expectations about governance and what gets to go to production.
Yeah, so it's a little challenging for us to answer this question because we've done so much of this work in-house as opposed to with partners. But we do have one vendor we work with and one partner. And on the vendor side, they've done an excellent job. It's a predictive modeling solution that helps us with underwriting, particularly with groups that don't have utilization or medical experience, right? So it gives us clinical, actuarial, and behavioral indications of what a particular plan might look like from a risk standpoint. The integration with that has gone really well. Part of it is that the data we have to provide is pretty straightforward in order for them to do this. The more important piece is not that it's kind of a small data set that we provide that they give the feedback, but that the system is constantly learning, right? So over time, it's this feedback loop where we're giving claims back to it and utilization back to it based on what it predicted in the future. That's how we're getting value out of it. And I'd say that vendor has done a very good job. We have a partner that we actually build on top of their tech stack, which has been developed around machine learning specifically. And we have engineers who are actually deployed in their facility and do development with them. So again, maybe that's cheating a little bit, but it works very effectively. And very good points on, you've got to be willing to experiment, right? Not everything's going to work. You can have the best intention and the best idea. And then, Meredith, I think you said, sometimes you end up with a result that you don't predict at all. And what are you going to do with that? How do you? It's okay to start over, right? We're really early in the process, right? But we think that we've seen ourselves, the results that you can achieve can be tremendous. So, you kind of have to keep pushing forward with it.
I like that. So let's continue with the same thread, but we'll hand it over to Meredith and we'll say, what do you think is easier to work with, the claim side of the house or the underwriting side of the house? And then from that, which side of the house do you think is easier to work with in terms of changing their workflows and data ingestion?
Wow. I mean, I think they're all not all, none of them are difficult to work with, but you have to recognize everybody comes to the table with a different context and even a different unconscious culture. So we find we're working with underwriters, I think that agility concept sometimes, again, on kind of what we focus on is we don't do automated underwriting. We respect that is a very significant behind the scenes process, but what we strive to do is enable that. We're working with carriers who have invested in building these great straight through processing capabilities, but they're all predicated on you have to get the right information at that first broker or customer engagement for the magic to happen. And so we work with that, and it's really trying to kind of help the underwriter kind of see their process from the outside in, like really see it from the outside in, of even the sequence of how you ask questions. Because, the way that maybe an underwriter thinking about it very scientifically may not be how a risk manager necessarily thinks about answering those questions. So I think that claims, their challenge has been, and I self-confessed I started my career as a claims adjuster, so I feel I can say this. We want to hold everyone's hand. We want to have that personal touch, and it's hard to realize that sometimes that's not what the customer or the claimant wants. And it really comes down to, and there's always those certain triaging things where you want to use automation to be like, oh no, your house burned down. No, we need to talk to you, please. We're not doing that on a digital FNOL journey. No, thank you. Because we want to help you. And really that's where the human touch, believe it or not, is going to add value. But there's a lot of times where that consumer experience, that expectation is shifted and the customer wants to pick and choose. And automation isn't necessarily going to get you there. I used to have, when I was on an auto desk, I had more complaint calls with customers debating labor rates and OEM versus LKQ parts on a 15-year-old car than I did people whose buildings were not habitable after like a furnace puffback or something. You just don't know from the customer point of view what matters. And so what we really focus on is choice and really saying claims, it's okay that they don't want to talk to you. It's okay. Don't take it personally. They still love you. But, it's kind of on their time, on their dime when they want to engage. And so that's what we really find with claims is that's the challenge is they want to always be there. And sometimes the best way you can be empathetic, and there's an analyst, Martin Ellingsworth, if anybody knows Marty, he has this great, I'll paraphrase him, of respecting someone's time is the greatest sign of empathy. And I didn't quote that quite accurate, but he gets credit for it because I think it's such a profound thought.
I really like that quote. I think I might use that one. You should on LinkedIn. I would like it. So Michael and Elizabeth, let's get a little bit more into the details. So can you share a story or an experience that you had about really you had to use an AI solution because your core platform was not fitting the bill?
Sure. So, Meredith said, respecting underwriting, which we do, but we do a lot of fully insured conversion business where you don't have the claims that you might otherwise or the utilization that you might want to use. And so the example I talked about before, the vendor that we use, we couldn't do that we didn't have the database or the internal expertise at the time to do that on our own. So we partnered with them because they had built this capability to give us, it's not binary for us. It's not like the end result that we get from their predictive underwriting analysis says, write the case or don't write the case, but it helps give us a much better sense of what this population might be like. So That was a great partner for us. And we generally, as a business, first look to partner as opposed to building everything internally. I mean, so many of these things are so complex and sophisticated and time consuming. You've heard, ROI and time and investment. And 3 times out of 4, you're going to get to end of that road and you're going to kind of have a failed outcome. So if you could have partners that help you minimize the expense and the time to get to that failed outcome, we think that's a great way to proceed.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about this, I think that solving for a deficiency is a lot harder than sort of coming up with a good way to sort of build a partnership. And so when we do, I've only worked in insurance for almost a year. I don't know the product nearly as well as our underwriting team, but I do think that our model's pretty good. And so the way that we like to sort of work together is we sort of want to make each other better. Our underwriting team is incredible, and we think that the model picks up on signal that maybe they just don't see, not necessarily because they couldn't go see it, but because there's just so much data. And so what we like to do is we like to sort of build that relationship and sort of tell them this is what the model's telling you. This is sort of how to interpret what it's saying. But definitely tell us when you think it's wrong, because not only are you going to be able to get more information from what we're predicting, but we also want to be able to make it better based off of your feedback. And so I don't actually think that going around your core system is maybe the answer. I think that it's really good to build a solid foundation and then just sort of build trust and build a partnership so that you can function really well together.
Great. So Bastian, how long should we think about time involved for an integration? And when does ROI start to come into it? When is it impacted by ROI?
Yeah, I think that we spoke a little bit, this panel spoke a little bit already to that topic. The reality is that most enterprises and companies, they want to see in-year ROI, right? Every CFO will tell you, I want to do an investment and I want to see ROI the same year. The reality is that, when it comes to actual data science, that is not, typically the case. So what we've seen is that there's 2 distinct customer sets within a company that that we work with. One is the actual core operation of claims operation or an underwriting operation, and being able to automate parts of that operation and automating rote tasks of extraction of core data can deliver in-year ROI, which is fantastic. Now, we don't need to push that data only out to an underwriting workbench or a claims adjustment system. We can push this out to a data lake as well. And in fact, this is exactly what we do with most of the carriers that we work with, so that the data science team can, on the back of that, also benefit and start leveraging and using all of the data that they actually already have, but which was previously unusable because it was unstructured. And leveraging that to increase the quality of models, et cetera, that you were referencing, and make that underwriting model even better. Yeah, I think that personally, the reality is that enterprises will want to see in-year ROI, and if you work together with your core operations, you should be able to achieve that.
So Meredith, do you think this is a people and change management topic, or do you think this is more of a core systems issue?
I think it is hard to separate them all, but there's some pithy expression about kind of automating a bad process is not going to have a great outcome. So it really is first and foremost, for a moment, I work with companies say, assume you had to, I think, because core systems have what, 10 to 15 year lifespan, but live for 25 to 30, 50 in one of my companies. So you just have to, for a moment, the reality is no one really knows how much of why they do things the way they do them is because it's how they need to do it today, as opposed to it's a carry-on hangover thing that was never stopped because nobody said we don't need to do that anymore, or it's some element of a workaround to an earlier system constraint that maybe you don't need to do anymore. So really it's for a moment, decouple them and say, how would you do it today if you had nothing? What would that future state, because you're not trying to replicate the current state. that's not really transformation, that's standing in place, which is in this industry losing ground. It's for a moment, assuming you had nothing, what would you want it to look like and why? I am huge about the why. And if you don't know why, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it from a process perspective. And that's a big change management moment for people, like assume you had nothing. I'm like, hold on, that's a system thing, not a how we make, provide great service and make great money. Then you do have to layer in the core system. And you don't want to have, I don't think, a transformation effort that creates all this critical path. You have to crack the hood open and almost completely rewrite or replace it, as opposed to figure, so how do we get our future state work done with the system that we have, and kind of iterate on that. And then the last piece is, now where's your opportunity? Where do you want AI to come in and play? And that can start actually propelling a conversation to go to a next level. So I find if you break those three apart and then glue them back together again, you're still going to wind up with some compromises. But one of the biggest things is you'll know what they are and why they're there, which is gold in most companies.
Great. So our last final question is for each of you, and it's really to say, what's one piece of feedback or advice that you have in terms of reducing friction when implementing AI and trying to drive change? I'll start with Michael, and then maybe we can just go down.
Yeah, mine's pretty straightforward, and it's probably obvious, and you've heard it on the panel up here today, is get out and speak to people, speak to experts, engage. We're big proponents of partnering, ask questions. Don't be afraid to dive in, but my one piece of advice would be don't necessarily do it on your own. There are excellent companies, consultants, technology providers out there that you can work with that can really help you accelerate the delivery. Meredith had a great, ask why. Why are you doing this? It can't just be because it's cool and it's, the next thing, right? Like, what are you actually trying to deliver? What are the results you're looking for? And you can find companies out there that can help you get there.
And I would say, I think that communication and transparency with your stakeholders is really important. Like, it's building a model is one thing and sort of getting your data together is one thing, but you really need to be able to get your stakeholders aligned as to how it's going to be used and make sure that there's room in the business to actually use it and that it's not going to cause a lot of friction. So just coming in and saying like, we're going to use machine learning to change everything is like definitely a path to people not wanting to work with you.
And again, we're focused on the customer experience side. So of course, we talk about voice of the customer, outside in, and that's all good. Talk to your customers, et cetera. But I've learned as a carrier and now, where I am now, ask your people, because your employees are on the front lines. Your employee experience is your customer experience. And you say, what are the things that you do today that you first step back to why you do it? Because you'd be surprised every once in a while where, again, somebody never told you to stop producing a particular report that the person who was getting it retired 10 years ago, and that report's going to nowhere. I've literally lived that journey many times. But, figure out if you know why you're doing it and you understand its value and you're looking at it, but your employees look at it and say, please pray tell, why do we still have a person doing that? And and I did that. And I taught my employees how to do high level, super Excel worksheet kind of ROI swag for them to understand so how are you going to build your backlog? If you had to automate something, what's that one interaction? Be agile, truly be agile, one interaction at a time. At the same time, in the spirit of looking within your own walls, look at your inbound call volumes. The 80-20 rule, it prevails. 80% of that volume is driven by 20%, and the bulk of those things are very simple questions where customers are looking for a very simple way to get a very easy answer. When is my check coming out? When is my next payment due? One of our customers was getting buried in the when is my next check coming out, short-term disability, so claims with the tail like a workers' comp claim would have as well. And they're like, we can't keep up with the calls and, all the voicemail tag. And so they just pushed out, let's experiment. Let's push out the option for them to opt in to get an alert every time their payment's going to go out. And they got a huge opt-in and almost an immediate 35% reduction in inbound phone calls. I mean, they went and did a CSAT survey on the employers as well, which was lovely, but I'm kind of like, I don't think you really need to do that. I think the numbers spoke for themselves. And that was that one thing that made the injured worker happier, which made the customer happier, which made your employees happier, and it dropped your OPEX. I mean, just that one outbound text message opt-in and building that integration, or I think they may have even done the flat file, to push out that periodic payment status update. So, ask your employees and think small.
Yeah, I mean, I'm echoing so many things that were just said on the panel. Absolutely answer those 3 whys, like why now, why anything, and like why that particular company. That's very important. Keep on looking throughout your organization. There are so many areas in an insurance operation that can be improved. Anytime you find yourself doing things that are mundane or that you do repeatedly, those are elements that can be automated, like even if they are really unstructured. Any type of activity that is mundane and not core to your actual value add as a professional, those are types of things that can be automated. Now, then subsequently doing that requires actually a good business case. I mean, like any other company decision, this is not about doing stuff that's just interesting or fun. Like having a good idea about what the business case and ROI is going to be, focusing on the things that you do most often, like or where you find yourself missing repeatedly elements. So one of the insurers that we're working with, they had a small business line, which was pollution lines. They've received 10,000 submissions per year. It's for some that might be a lot. For other insurers here in the room, that might be very little. But what is the most shocking thing is that they didn't open 8,000 of them because they didn't have the capacity to open them, and they came from brokers that they didn't know. So the ability just to scan those 8,000 via automation for core characteristics that like, hey, is this potentially interesting business or not, and be able to immediately disqualify that business if not. That's a huge value add. And in this particular case, they were able to double their business within a year just by opening up those 8,000 by means of automation. So that looking creatively around your organization for opportunities like that can dramatically increase revenue and profit. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. All right.
Thank you, panel. I'll be giving out headshots later. If anybody needs to share ROI, that's me, to your executives and CEO. I heard ROI all day. My name is ROI. Nobody. Got nobody. It's a tough crowd, man. Tough crowd. Jeez. No, that was a great panel. I think it was great to understand the journey that everyone's going on in terms of mastering the integration challenges we had. Up next, we're going to pivot a little bit over to a TED Talk. Guys ready? Get excited. AI, come on, guys. It's the pizza kicking in, I know. It's okay. We have Sonia joining us today. She's a founder and managing partner of BestFit. She founded BestFit to add the human factor into the digital world. BestFit is a behavioral science-based platform that reveals the discovery journey, the deep personality traits and decision drivers, putting the human and the personal touch on. Sonia? You can take a mic.
Thank you. Up, down.
Down. Let me get you ready. Right there, and just down this button there.
AI. I think if you chat about it, and I'll ask you, everyone will have a different answer. And let me add one to that. Artificial is actually a French word which was used the first time in the 16th century. And what it means is made by humans. It doesn't mean anything else. It means made by humans. And what we are focusing on is actually HI, BestFit HI, human intelligence. And we have our answer to the eternal question, what is the center of the universe? The center of the universe for us is a human being. And with my team, we actually have put together a system, a platform, 3 minutes fun, engaging, to discover this human nature in people. Digitalization has changed everything. Companies, people, how they buy, how they communicate, how they spend their time. But one thing is exactly the same. If you want to grow your company, you need more clients and you need happy clients. And how do you do that if you don't meet them? The old agent, the good salesman, he's speaking to the guy, looking at his gesture, at his eyes, measuring the reaction, and out of that, designing his sales pitch. And this is a problem we have been solving. A substitution of the hour, the half an hour, even the 10 minutes. Everyone is speaking about ROI. People have to be efficient. So we are basically the missing piece of understanding human behavior. With Professor Moran Cerf, he was chosen as one of the 40 most important scientists before 40 years. He is an Israeli, started out in the Israeli military, in the intelligence, 8,200. Today a professor in Kellogg's University. And he says very nicely what we do. We make thoughts visible, we transform information into insights, and we allow our clients to speak to customers' planes. This is based on science, what we are doing. We have just packaged it fun and easy. One of the people I have a close relationship is Professor Vernon Smith. He made the Nobel Prize together with Daniel Kahneman, the guru of behavioral economics. Professor Aumann, he got the Nobel Prize for gaming theory. Gaming is actually, theory is how do people make decisions. And why is that so important? Because one of the hot topics now is hyper-personalization. And please remember, in the middle of this word is person. And Gartner, I am happy to send out these researches to each and every one of you who is interested. Gartner actually chose us after 10 months of grueling due diligence as a cool vendor InsurTech in 2020 for all commercial applications, and in 2021 for what we are calling all health and well-being applications. So what are we? And I'll show you soon an example. We are basically 3 minutes of a digital journey where we discover people's decision drivers. How do they make a decision? Based on facts or based on emotions? Do you send them a term sheet, a competitor analysis, or a testimonial? What is their degree of sophistication? Insurance is not a product sale. What you're selling is a promise. I will be here when something happens to you, when you need me. And to believe this promise, you have to communicate to the people on their level. What is their degree of sophistication? You come up with something sophisticated and the guy says, whoa, this guy just wants to confuse me. And you're speaking to a sophisticated person in kitchen English, and he'll say, these guys are really not impressive. So all of that litigation, if you have someone filing a claim, he's most probably already thinking about the lawyer to hire. If it's an emotional person and you tell him as a first thing, so sorry this happened to you, this whole tension is out. And if a rational person hears it, he says, what the hell, I want to know when I get my money. So all of these things, which is human characteristics, are important. Our clients have sent out more than 4 million of these discovery journeys. The completion rate, which means people answer our indirect questions, and our questions are indirect to avoid biases. And I'll show them to you in a moment. produce results. So what you see here is Einstein once said, I have no special talent. I'm just incredibly curious. So our 3-minute journey starts with, who is really like you? Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, or Zuckerberg? Discover the genius in yourself. And what we can deliver for our companies is, for instance, onboarding. On Facebook, Wüstenrot, a European insurance company, posted on the interesting age group where we say 9 fun questions, your email and the permission to contact you, your profile, your selfie. 57% of the people who saw the post on Facebook left their email address and the permission to contact them. And we have already the information how to contact them, to have conversion. Digital transformation. Everyone wants to efficiency, call center, less time, less employees. One of our clients made an A/B testing. Instead of calling us, please send us an email. The same message standard sent out, we say always did it, and our personalized messages, 4 times as many people reacted. And one last but not least, NPS. So the data, the emotional data we use about people is collected and is divided into clusters. And to each of the clusters, we then personalize the message and the colors, the wording of the DM, the outgoing emails. We were able for Zurich Insurance Group, which is one of our large clients, to increase the NPS by 30% and to increase the renewal of policies by 7.5%. So let me quickly show you how we are doing that. And now let me see how I go to the link. Perhaps you want to do that. It's easier. So you see here, typical question. What is, I received an invitation in my mailbox. What do I do? Can you go to the next one? So it's motivating, it's moving, it's going on. Can you click on the link, please? Doesn't work? If not, I'm just going to collect mine or something. So basically, it's small journeys where in the end you have instantly showing up the result. Can you perhaps try to get on the avatar? So metaverse, same thing. In the metaverse is going to be a success if the people are going to be happy and like it. Can you make it work? Or? Okay, please go ahead. You should be hearing what he says. So I got to have what is really, whom do you want to have dinner with? Charlie Chaplin? I don't know. No questions where we are headed. What is with the trip to the moon? How do you spend it? And then the answer, whoa, you are great. With you reason rules, and so do the pet. A small profile, and then what you don't hear, I think I have an idea for you. And that is something we call priming and flow. If people do something, they continue doing it. And that is what is really the most important thing. When you go on, you say, well, let's look together at this insurance policy. It's just the right thing for you to do. So the same applies. The same applies to. Do you give it back to me? The same applies to the health. We have this 3-minute journey, which basically shows you the 3-minute journey, which can measure emotional well-being. I think we are the only platform in the world who in 2.5 minutes can give an insurance company, can give to an insurance company the overview, are these people in good shape? Do they need emotional support? Prediction of burnout. The WHO said depression is going to be the biggest cause of ill health by 2030. So what we give you is basically a new dimension of data, and data is the most important thing. When we are speaking about data, is why do people do it? You have a huge amount of data of what people do, demographics, all kind of what have the people done, which insurance have they bought, what claim have they filed. That is past. What we give you is why do people do it? And this is predictive. Whatever we have shown you now, zero integration needed. We give you an URL and you add to the URL a number. So we don't need any data from you. You send out by SMS, by email, in a WhatsApp, this URL. Thank you for visiting our website. We have an email for you. A large HMO in Israel, Maccabi, sent it out as a happy birthday card. Happy birthday, I have a gift for you. Your personality selfie. We collected 200,000 completed personality profiles in a few months, which empower the whole future relationship commercially, emotionally, and in really impacting the well-being of the patients, the well-being of the clients, and the well-being commercially of the company. So we can build an API, we can give you an SIS solution, but you just need absolutely anything. Stand alone, let's go. And therefore GDPR compliant. We have finished samples, 10 days to go live, 30 days for a completely customized solution. Let's work together. We want to help you to press the human into digital. It's easy, it's fun, and looking forward, whatever you do, if you're working for an insurance company, if you are an investor, the company belongs to me, we have a finished product, proven, ready to scale, and if someone wants to spread our voice in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. That was great. It's amazing how much science and research went into that. So thank you very much. Hey, I'm going to take 1 second. If those folks are there, we got about 3 seats on this side. If you want to make the shuffle, now's the shuffle time. And you have a little room in the back there, but that's my seat there. Just saying. All right. With that said, moving on to another TED Talk. Let me introduce Rick. He's the founder and chief architect and CTO of T4S Partners. He has over 25 years of experience across multiple industries. He's responsible for designing and delivering the next generation of applications and solutions. With no further ado, let me pass it over to you, please. Would you like to stand or this one?
I'll use this one.
And then down goes...
Down goes forward.
Yeah, go figure.
That's interesting. I wonder how it works with left and right. Anyway, hi, everyone. This hopefully won't take too long because there's food out there and drinks. And I know you guys are waiting for the next, or the break. So hopefully I'll get to this point very quickly. But nevertheless, I believe almost every single AI implementation out there is missing something. And in some cases, it's easy to get. Sometimes it's not. But let me start with this. So when I started in AI back in the 80s, I found this advertisement. This advertisement, I hope you can all read it, but just in case, only the Polytron reduces an entire mouse to a soup-like homogenate in 30 seconds. It tells us exactly what it does. In fact, there's some more information. The question is, what is it used for? Why? What's missing is something very simple. Context. What's the situation? What's the scenario? What's the environment in which this is used in? Right? What's the history behind this? All these things make up context, which is essential for understanding and, as a result, making decisions from that. Let me give you a more personal example, not a happy one, but nevertheless. In the 1980s, our first child was stillborn. And a few weeks later, we started receiving advertisements and coupons for baby supplies. And ironically enough, we received an offer for life insurance for our child. So there's a situation, even though I don't think AI was necessarily involved, there was a situation where the user of that data did not consider the full context. They probably just considered the fact that a birth certificate was created. So in those particular examples, I think that it shows very simply how context is really important. Now, of course, for the insurance industry, context is actually part of the business, right? If you look at actuarial science takes things like lifespan, location, things like that, and turns it into mathematical constructs that really help you figure out risk. And so that's a form of including context. The problem is that oftentimes context isn't necessarily broad enough, like that is the big picture, so to speak. And so as a result, a lot of the AI that gets created or gets used, particularly in machine learning, ends up being biased. And in fact, the Casualty Actuarial Society came out with 2 reports recently about how bias is showing up in AI in insurance. One place is healthcare. And what's interesting is that it's not just what context they added to it, but what context was added and they didn't even know about. I think Meredith put it really well with the notion of an unconscious culture, right? What was added to that? Let me give you one other example where this couple, married couple, living in the same house, earning the same amount of money, where the AI did not include any factors of gender, yet the woman received significantly less coverage than the husband. And for some reason, there was context included that happened to be biased. And so that's part of the problem, is that not just what is it missing, but what are you missing about what you are including are key aspects to it. But it's not just about using AI for doing insurance, for providing insurance, but also how do you insure things that have AI in them more and more, right? Let's take self-driving cars. I mean, yes, there's a whole bunch of aspects to it, but very simply put, the context around self-driving cars is, do they take context such as, has it been raining for the past 3 days? Because how does the car know not to go under an underpass there, which will likely be flooded? So these are elements that show basically need to be addressed, not just when using AI for insurance, but when insuring AI. So this is a great quote that came from a researcher from the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm not going to read it for you, but basically I think it really puts it very succinctly. Now, actually one key aspect to it though is accessible. So that's probably the hardest part of this, is what does it mean to be accessible? And this is particularly true for natural language processing, right? Context is so important for natural language processing. In fact, let me give you a more humorous example that recently happened in Finland. This AI chatbot for a Finnish insurance company was asked, how do I report a new baby? The response was, so sorry you had an accident. Because the chatbot assumed that the primary purpose of the chatbot was to report claims. So they had missed an entire spot of context. And let me just kind of synopsize it and really take it to the next level where AI needs to go as well, which is, let me give you the question. So I'm being asked the question, where did Doc send Einstein? Not enough information in that to really drive a decision to give a response. But what AI is often missing, and I think where it's going to go, is the best way to get context, and the way humans get context often, is to ask. So I will ask the question, do you mean Einstein the physicist? And I get the response back, no, I mean Einstein the dog. And so my answer is clear, 1 minute into the future. Thank you. There's my comment.
That was great. I really appreciate the ethical aspects of AI inserted in there. I think it's very important. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, but before you move, I got 3 things. First thing, we're going to come back and we have another TED Talk and another panel coming up. It's really exciting. That's one. The second thing is, hey, secretly, go wish Tony Liu a happy birthday. It was his birthday last week, and he was trying to be secretive. So that's your homework too. And then lastly, come back. It's 6:45 now. Can we do it in 10 minutes? What do you think? 6:55? You hear a cowbell? Come on, herding in. All right? Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I'm going to wake you up soon. Just